they were really like, they were not great stories. They're kind of embarrassing because you're on the come up in your life and your prefrontal cortex isn't, you know, fully formed, so you
Developed.
don't make good decisions. So I'm in front of all these people and he starts bringing these stories out, and I just looked at him and I was like, we are not going to have this conversation right now. I am not interested in this. This is not productive. And I got up and I left the table. I showed my disdain. That was probably one of the only times that my dad and I ever had conflict with me as an adult. And welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another episode of the Unbreakable Podcast. It's Josie and I today. How's it going, Josie?
It's good. It's been a really quick week. Snow's coming again. So, yeah.
Glad it's been a quick week for you. I've just been getting kicked. So
Yeah.
it's, but it is time for Holiday Raccoon. So I changed my mug up and...
Mine's Stitch.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, to match
Mine's a
the
raccoon in a sweater.
I don't have any holiday mugs yet.
What? Are you
Well,
even
they
an
have
adult?
Halloween holiday mugs, because that's a holiday to me. But
Yes.
no Christmas ones yet.
Yeah, it's tragic. I don't particularly care for stuff, and getting like holiday mugs and things like that. It's cute and it's nice, but this gets used for like 6 weeks out of the year, and so then it
That's
sits
absurd.
somewhere and it takes space for 6 months of the year. And I don't know. I try to be a minimalist, but alas, it does not work because people continue to purchase things for me.
Yeah,
So this was a gift. I would never buy this for myself.
Oh, come on. I feel like you would.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I'm just not a Christmas fan, so I think that's why I don't have a lot of Christmas stuff.
I like to think I'm not a Christmas fan, but I really am. It's about the feeling, right?
Yeah.
And for me, and I think that's the way it is for a lot of people, right? We love Christmas, we don't like Christmas. We like Christmas, we don't like the people. And for me, I always have such great memories of Christmas because my dad used to throw an open house. And so
Oh,
for
nice.
us, it was like everything was all about getting the house ready for the open house. So cleaning and prepping, and then we would help cut up all the food and we would put like this little pick and pull dinner together for all of our friends. And it was an exciting time for us to be able to socialize and network with our community and be with people that maybe we hadn't seen all year. And it's a time of year where people are just generally friendlier to each other.
Yeah.
In
It's the one time of
public.
year that people show a lot of love.
Yeah. In public, right? Behind closed doors, I think it's very different. We've been publishing quite a bit of content on, creating boundaries and enabling people to have the Christmas holiday or the holiday that they would want. And, we're getting some really, really good, strong responses. And it's interesting. It's a lot of people who have historically given everything to everyone.
People
You know?
pleasers.
Yeah. Moms
Yes.
do a lot, and
Yeah.
dads do too, right? We sometimes forget how much dads do, and it's that quiet stuff in the background that mom yells at them to do.
Yeah, pretty much. But they still do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then there's there's the Thanksgiving dinners, and then there's the, Christmas dinner and being around family and just rushing around to go and do all the things and keep up with all of the people. And it's exhausting because I think we live tradition based off of what we think we should do because we saw it on a Hallmark movie.
Mm-hmm. That's not usually what it ends up being.
No. Actually, one of my favorite Christmas movies or holiday movies is Four Christmases, and that's the one with Vince Vaughn and Reese Witherspoon. I'm like, there's so much reality in that. Like, it's just so much reality.
They nail Christmas pretty good. Mine's the Grinch, clearly.
Clearly, absolutely. It's a cult that you belong to. So talk a little bit about, like, so for you, I mean, Christmas is not a thing that resonates with you a whole lot, and there's history there for that.
Very. I guess as a kid, it was like everything bad seemed to happen on Christmas. Everything would go wrong on Christmas. The Christmas dinners would go wrong. The family would fight on Christmas. Um, when my parents were together, and never really seen them for a while after that. So that was a great Christmas memory. When I was 13, though, my grandmother that I talk about quite a bit, one that kind of raised me and gave me all my good morals and all the fun stuff that comes with the package of Josie. She went into the hospital on Christmas Eve and never got to come out. So it's like a black cloud followed the family every year after that, even more so than the childhood.
Yeah.
Christmas would be coming up and you're excited to, give gifts and to see the family you haven't seen in a while and all that stuff. But there's always oh, but all those bad things happen at Christmas. And last year, clearly, my Christmas was not the best. That was when my family started to give me the boot. Last time I see my nephew. This year, I have a new nephew and I have another baby in my friend group. I'm making traditions that are mine now. So I'm trying to shift that mindset that not every Christmas is going to be inherently so. I've had a lot of trauma through the Christmas times, and it's hard when you have, say, my partner, for example, who absolutely loves Christmas. It looks like Santa puked downstairs in our living room right now because
Love
she's
that.
making Grinch houses and the tree is up, and we had our bearded dragon helping us, decorate a tree. But it's those little kind of traditions that I'm making my own now instead of, you know, what my family has done for the last, don't want to age myself, but 35 years didn't work. So we have a Friendsmas that we're doing. All that chosen family is coming here. I get to do the thing I love and cook for everyone. Play some games, to hang out with two babies. There's really nothing else you can ask for that. And spending obviously Christmas Eve with my partner's family and then, yeah, making our own traditions. So,
You have to. I think that's part of being an adult. And I love that you've got some reframing and the opportunity to create the experience that you want. And I think when we talk about our experience, that's exactly what it is. And
mhm,
if we were to look at section 3 of Unbreakable, this is the science.
mhm,
What does the science tell us? The science tells us that, we look at the Freudism. Christmas is what it is because of how it's always been. Or we look at Adler and I get to make it what it is. What I
yeah,
don't want it to be is just as important for what I want it to be. Secondarily, focusing the reticular activating system on things like developing new processes for getting your house decorated and new traditions with new babies and friends and chosen family. I think that's really powerful. And it's not that we don't grieve the things that we've lost.
of
I
course.
look at I look at this and this is my fifth Christmas without my father, and he loved Christmas. And so we hang on to some of those traditions. And one of the traditions is something my new mom, my stepmom, who I just call mama, and it's tinsel.
Oh god, yeah, don't blame her.
It is magnificent and it is wonderful. And we decorated our tree just last night because I've been traveling like crazy. I was in France last week and then I was in the US a couple weeks before that. And I was in Asia for 2 weeks ahead of that. And so doing these, lectures and things like that and, talking about the book and talking about my area of expertise. So my daughter wanted to get the tree up, and so I was like, "Okay, well, let's just get it up." Normally, we don't put it up until just like the first couple of days of December, and so because we're heading out to go spend some time with some elderly family this weekend, I thought, "Okay, let's just get it up, and we've got it." And she and I were decorating the tree last night, and we were putting pieces on there. And last year, when I came home, one of the things that my mom has been doing slowly is she's like weeding things out. She's downsizing significantly, and so I got a little bag of decorations that I made as a child. And I was quite the artist, I would just say.
No big deal there.
Yeah, I'm a little creative. I don't know if you noticed,
Yeah.
but what was super cool was taking those out of the bag and hanging them on the tree. And my daughter, of course, I've got a ton of her homemade decorations. Like we are absolutely not like, okay, we're going to put all blue ornaments on, or we're going to put all red
Yes.
ornaments. We are not like that. Our tree is just a schmoz of decorations that have come from everywhere. Like they really speak to the heritage of who we are as people and the things that are important to us. And like there are some that are on there from when it was just Ruth and I, my daughter and I, and we were not making a lot of money, and so we were hand making decorations. And then there's like the $6 decorations from Canadian Tire from when her father and I were married. And we're really young and we're living in this shit ass trailer in the Yukon, and the floors are molding, and we're at that come up stage where we're at the really beginning. And I hang on to those things because first, they're a part of who we are and where we've come from. It reminds me of the journey and how it wasn't always easy, but I don't look back and see it as not easy, I guess. Like it is what it is. Like I can't change anything in my past, but what I can do is I can build on that, and I can stand on the foundation that I've built to continue. And so it was really cool because she's got this like reindeer that she made out of like a Christmas light. So the Christmas light is facing down. It's got like little eyeballs on it and a little red nose. And then it's got pipe cleaners for antlers. And
Nice.
so the one that I made, and I made it in brownies. I remember this, the cult of brownies. And it was seriously, you're running around like a
I
mushroom
know.
and you're throwing money
I
and you're
never got to
singing
do
at it.
it.
Like something just feels a little odd about that. But I mean, hey, whatever. They taught me how to put a Band-Aid on without, damaging the sterile part. I think about that all the time. Core memories, right? The things that matter. But there's this like it's a half of a walnut shell, and then there's like this little balled up piece of material for the body. And so it's like swaddled, and then another nut as the face, and then felt ears and an elastic band for the tail. Like classic 80s, right? And so she's like, Mom, we have to hang it next to my reindeer. So we had to like hang these two pieces together. And I have a picture of them, but because there's so much tinsel, you can barely see them because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
tinsel is life. And then there was another one, like she's got these ones that are made out of paper, and they are like they're all but scraps and should probably go in the garbage, but she just
Nah.
refuses to let that happen. And so I have these ones that are made out of like foam with googly eyes, and it's
Yeah,
so weird, man. Like it's like a Christmas dog. Like what? Okay, fine. Anything can be Christmas, I guess. So it's just like we put those together on the tree, and so it just created this little bit of legacy. And then there was like the ornament from 1982. My grandparents used to give me an ornament every year, I guess. I don't know. There's one that I found, and it's literally like a little plastic apple. And it's like, this is the ornament. And like, you can tell how directive my grandmother was. Catherine, Merry Christmas. Ooh, thanks for that great love. And then on the back, it's like, this is the ornament for the year. And then on the ornament itself, she's written 1982. And I'm just like, the lack of warmth
Yeah.
and that was just, it's astounding to me to like kind of look back. And so again, I look back and I see these traditions and the things that we knew or we didn't know. And then it's like, I don't know. Like we have this one. Okay, so we have this one tradition, and I'll send you a picture. We can put it up
Yes.
on the screen. And it is Chris Moose. This Chris Moose he's a Christmas moose, and Chris Moose has had several run-ins with problems. Like Chris Moose has like he's got little dangling legs on him, and he's got these like little
Oh my
boots.
god, he's cute.
So you'll notice one of his antlers is missing. The other one is cracked and like the chipped at the top. And
Got
we
some
actually used to
stains on his
we used to
leg.
sit him on the we used to sit him on the mantle. And one night we were sitting there and we had the fireplace going, and all we hear is clink clink. And I'm like, the hell was that? And I kind of go over to the fireplace. We melted his feet off because
Oh,
the
that's
fire
what you're
heated the glue, and his little shoes fell off. So we had to like plug them back in. So Chris Moose has seen the gamut. And when I look at him, the reason why I hang on to him is because I think he represents the holidays very well. Some are good or some are bad. We've had some significant situations where we've had some not so great Christmases in the past. But at the end of the day, look at this little moose. He's still smiling. Chris Moose. And so he's a tradition in our family. And so should Christmas continue to survive and sustain,
As
you
long as you
know,
don't turn the fireplace on.
we sit him elsewhere now. We sit him over by the plants. That way he's not
Smart,
near the flame.
smart.
And then the other ones that are also really, we have a competition to see how many ornaments we cannot break. And we only broke 2 yesterday. And
Oh,
so one was a nice glass one, and my daughter broke that one. She shattered it actually. It like went everywhere. And I dropped SpongeBob and broke his leg off
oh,
and
you did
his foot.
not.
I did.
That one hurts the heart.
I
SpongeBob,
know.
he's my man.
It's yeah, it's crazy. I'm gonna send you the mouse and the mouse and the reindeer as
Yeah,
well.
you definitely wanna show some
You really actually have to like look for them. It's like one of those like, what shape do you see? See if you can find the mouse and the reindeer.
okay, but that looks really nice.
I know. You have to put that one up on the screen as well.
But yeah, my nan actually was obsessed with tinsel. I t Majority of her tree was tinsel.
I love
Every
it.
Christmas when we went to go help, because she had COPD, so she was
Mm,
very overweight from steroids and everything else, and then carried around her little oxygen tank unless she was at home, and, it was the 75-foot oxygen, tubes everywhere all the time.
Lord,
Yeah,
you
it
could
was
like
a fun.
double dutch with them.
Okay, I have done that as a kid a couple times, or I would, like, wrap it around, and she'd be like, "Josie, I can't breathe, like, you need to stop kinking my line." I'm like, "Mm, I don't know, this was fun for 5 minutes, I guess. Put that down, you do need to breathe," but we bring the tree up, and she'd, like, pull out, like, 8 packs of tinsel, and she's like, "All of it
Love
goes
it.
on the tree." I'm like, "Okay," and then you're finding tinsel in, like, your sweaters, your underwear, the
Yeah,
bottom of your shoes, like,
you
I
find it
loved it
everywhere.
then, but I think I just can't get myself to put tinsel on there yet. But with these new traditions, I may go back to tinsel. We'll see.
We keep it from the bottom. We don't allow it because we have a dog, Justice for
Yeah.
All. She likes to sleep under the tree. She's like, "I'm the greatest gift you've ever had. Here
Well,
I
yeah,
am." Like,
obviously.
we put the tree up and she was, like, sleeping under it all night last night because she thinks the tree skirts for her.
Yeah, see, her and Dorito would get along real well because we put the
Crazy.
tree up, and he was on my shoulder and literally jumped into the tree, and he wouldn't come out of the tree. He's like, "No,
Lord.
it's my tree now." So
Yeah. That's
I'll put
funny.
up a picture of, Dorito in the tree for the people that do like lizards. It is pretty cute. It's on my Instagram, but I'm private, so not everyone
Mhm.
can see it.
Yeah. I'll throw that in there. So, when you think about your the tips, the top tips for kind of getting through the holidays. I mean, we've put a lot in about like creating boundaries and saying no to the things that don't serve you. Um, I personally, I do think, some of the feedback that we've heard from listeners, viewers, and participants with Unbreakable has been like setting those boundaries has actually helped people understand where their limits are. So it's not even just about setting the boundary. It's like I think people just expect a lot from others. And so when you can say, I can't meet you where you are, I need you to meet me where I am. I think
Mhm.
that has been really powerful. I
Very.
had an experience. I had my first holiday party last night and I canceled. I had a workshop yesterday and I had a really long week. And of course, the surprise trip to France last week really didn't help. And I'm going out to see family, like I said. And so I made the decision that it just wasn't worth the rush for me to rush into the city, driving an hour, attending the party, sacrificing sleep, and then rushing back the hour, knowing that I had to do everything that I had to do today to prepare for a 6.5 hour drive into the Rockies. So it was disappointing to some people. I received some text messages, "Hey, we missed you," or, the text message from like one of my best friends was like, "With your schedule, I wasn't sure you were going to be able to make it." And it's kind of like, I know that there was no intent behind that, but
Mhm.
it's one of those things where prioritizing your peace and making sure that you're not overextending is just, it's so important. So what are you doing or what are you going to do? Or what is Brittany doing to
Brittany's
not
actually
overextend?
she's getting very good with setting the boundaries, and I think I kind of feed off that as well, or I start the ball, one or the other. It's a good relationship for that kind of thing. Now on my end, we call it Friendsmas. we made it like, Brittany and I made it our tradition to host a Friendsmas every year. I did it last year, and you seen the tiny ass apartment we were in. We
Yeah.
fit 13 people in there and 2
It's a lot of
tables,
love. That's a lot of love.
turkey, and everything else, and had the, fake fireplace going on the TV behind the 12 people or the 13 people. This year, we have moved into a new townhome. I'm cooking everything this year. Don't like sharing my kitchen. So that was the first boundary I put down was, if you guys wanna contribute money towards I'm making a turkey and ham this year, doing, the potatoes, the stuffing, all your veggies. If people wanna bring desserts, they can do that part, but that was the biggest boundary I could put down because I don't like to make people feel uncomfortable. But I had to be like, you know what, 1, I have to make it sure everything's gluten-free, and that's hard when, there's other people cooking and gluten stuff around. I don't wanna make Brittany sick. We have another friend that's celiac. So my big boundary there was this year, whether people really like it or not, I'm a great cook, by the way. I made a bomb-ass turkey that I hate turkey, but I couldn't stop eating my turkey. So this year I was just like, "You know what, guys? I would feel better about doing this big meal if I could cook it myself." And I love my friends, but they were like, "Oh, well, that's a lot for you to do." I'm like, "No, it's a lot for me to start the turkey and then say the stuffing too because, again, gotta make sure it's gluten-free. And then you guys start to come over, but needing my oven and needing my counter space and needing all these things, and it's
Yeah.
not that I don't want that experience with my friends. I would
You
rather
just
just
don't want that experience.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just
Just let me
I don't
cook
wanna deal
it.
with it. Stay out of my
Yeah,
kitchen. Like, it's fine.
exactly.
Yeah.
Stay out of my kitchen. I will have a table over there, and yeah.
You
So
can put your snacks over there. Bring some cheese and crackers.
exactly. You can bring the finger foods before everything's actually ready. But that was a huge boundary for me to put down because to a point I am a people pleaser and I don't want to create any kind of conflict. Conflict, not meaning exactly like arguing with each other, but that felt good to be like, "Hey, this is my plan. You guys are gonna love it regardless because you loved my food last year. You're gonna love it again this year." And it started to well, some people were like, "Oh, well, I can still do this." And then after I was like, "No, no, this is kind of the boundary I put down." Everyone backed off and they're like, "Yeah, you know what? We're just gonna enjoy the fact that someone's cooking everything for us." Like, that's perfect. That's made me really
Yeah.
excited to
It's pretty
actually have
rare,
this
right?
Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
Brittany is making because it's Grinch themed. We are in Whoville this, year for Friendsmas. I'm actually getting excited to make the decorations and to we have tablecloths that are Grinch themed. The babies have, Grinch themes outfits. I have an ugly Christmas sweater that's Grinch theme. I also have a Grinch onesie if I wanted to wear that. But it's making me really excited to have that tradition
You should
and
not.
which the onesie or the
Yeah.
ugly sweater? Because the ugly sweater is pretty cool too.
Yeah, the onesie. The onesie. I mean,
Yeah, I'd probably
yeah,
die of the
I'd go
heat,
with another sweater. Yeah,
but I think
I was gonna say. Yeah.
in all, it is hard to put boundaries down regardless of what it is, especially in the holidays because we don't live in a Hallmark movie.
'Cause you don't wanna hurt anybody's feelings. Like, we wanna
Yeah,
accommodate. Yeah.
exactly.
No.
But the right people aren't gonna be pissed off at you for putting down boundaries. If I did this
No.
3 years ago, say, to
No.
my
You
family,
know,
they would lose their mind. So, it's nice to know.
that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me. It's like, yeah, like, what hill are you willing to die on, though? It's like, I look at these things and it's like, if somebody wants to cook a meal, fine, go ahead and cook a meal. Like,
Right?
we do, like, a tour. Like, because we have two widowed mothers. And so we drive from Strathmore, we go over to Melville, then we go up to Dauphin, then we come back to Melville. And this year, because of just where the holiday lands, like the 25th, 26th, um, we leave on the 19th and we're going to Melville for a couple of days. Then we're going to go to my mom's for 4 days because we do Christmas Eve for my mom. And that's a tradition that my father brought into the family. And so that's what we've always done. And then we get up the next morning and we drive the 2 hours back to Melville and we do Christmas Day because that's important to Aaron's mom. And then from there, we stick around for a couple days, then we drive home. And so for me, when we go to Dauphin, it's really a time for me to just chill out. I literally, I'll do whatever needs to be done, but we do like a pick and pull supper. We get sushi and buns. Like we do what we used to do when I was a little girl, right? Kielbasa, cheese, crackers, dips,
The good stuff.
buns, sandwiches, whatever, right? And we just pick and pull and we have a dessert tray. Yeah. And we just sit around and we watch movies and we talk. And there's usually a couple of folks who join us from the community that my mom lives in, which is great. We love the camaraderie and we love being able to spend time with folks. But when we go to Aaron's mom's house, is everything short of chaos because her family is just very, very like they're just large, loud personalities, right? And so there's her sister and her brother, and then their partners, and then their children, and then there's us, and then Ruth. What's really cool though is like all the grandkids get along really well, and they always have. And I love that because they don't get to see each other very often. And so when they're together, they just kind of buzz off and they go and sit somewhere and they do whatever they're going to do. And it's not a rush to open Christmas gifts. It's a rush to spend time together to, maybe have, a cup of coffee together. And, all the women, they just go into the kitchen and they're cooking with mom, and Aaron's brother is doing the turkey with her mom. And I'm just like, I'm not getting involved in it. I'm not touching it. I'm not doing anything. Erin does the running up and down the stairs to get the things. She plays the role of what her dad used to play. And it's just like, so things have kind of shifted, right? I mean, we're kind of moving through, older cousins who are now partnering with other people who are, maybe working or whatever. And so then those partners come in and you either do or don't have a relationship with that person, depending on who they are. And so like, there's like these periphery things that are happening. And then my role, what I really enjoy is when they're all sitting at the table afterwards and they're having cookies and snacks and gossiping about what they've read on Facebook and doing all of that stuff, the small town stuff. I like
Yeah,
to go and hand wash all of the dishes. I go into
me
the
too.
kitchen and that is my time, and I just sit and I
You
don't
decompress.
participate in anything. And nobody else wants to do the dishes. Nobody wants to do dishes. And so it's like, I just roll my sleeves up and I am in there sometimes for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And I'm just cleaning and I'm doing it to the standard that my mother-in-law would like because we're very similar people. And that is my happy spot because I just, for me, I love to visit. I love to hang out. I love to spend time together. I love to be together. But at the end of the day, I also really, really like peace and I really like quiet. And it is so hard over the holidays. Like I get overstimulated so quickly where I will vanish and just go sit somewhere quiet
Mhm.
for 15 minutes. I'll go stand outside and look at the stars. I'll go out for a walk. Like for me, having those breathers where I can just whew, because like I said, her family is very boisterous. And when they're together, there's just so much love in the room and so much joy. And it's wonderful. And I love it. But it's just a lot because I come from a very tiny little family unit where we are not boisterous and loud. And we don't have to talk over each other because there's
There's
like
just enough
there was three of us for so long, right? And so it's like no big deal. So it's just so interesting to find those boundaries. And the other thing too is, helping the next generation determine what those boundaries look like and being comfortable with telling your children that it is okay. And this is something that extended family members in my family have dealt with is being forced to hug people you don't want to interact with. There is there is this is where we start to see our multi-generational um like lifetime start to come together. Because when you look at like how we were raised as zillennial, millennial, Gen X, we were like, oh, here's your Auntie Carol, give her a hug. And we just did it because you hugged Auntie Carol. That's what you did. And then yeah. And so now we go into it and it's like, okay, here's your Auntie Carol. And we have a Gen Z, an alpha or a beta. And those kids are not like we haven't raised them the same. Like, and we have a we have a family member who used to, touch Ruth, like feet, not anything seriously, but like try and tickle her. And she would say to me, if that person tries to tickle me, I am going to get very angry. Like she would be like, I'm going to kick him in the throat or I'm going to do whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, we're not going to choose violence, but we're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
choose maybe moderate violence. We're going to say, we're going to
Use
set a
your words,
boundary
Ruth.
and say that's not acceptable. But, it's a very, very, very fine line. And I've seen this conversation online where you just go and give that old person a hug. Well, I see that old person once a year. We're not actually blood related. Why am I allowing them to like touch me?
Yeah, get in
I,
your
I
bubble.
don't want to be touched by people I don't know. Like, just get out of here, scram.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's like it's stuff like that, right?
yeah, and I think it's more than okay, not just with the kids, but if you don't wanna hug someone, you don't need to
Mhm.
hug someone.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from a French family too, and they're very huggy. Some of them, kiss on the cheek, whatever. My great aunts, I do love them, but, uh, for example, my cousin has 2 boys now, uh, 6 and 4, I believe. They're not huggers. So, seeing them interact with my great aunt, she'll come into my nan's house and, she hugs whoever's coming there, and if the boys are there, she goes to hug them, but, um, I don't really wanna say their names. I'll just say A, for example, it will literally turn and be like, "Nope," like, "Don't want it."
I'm not doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, and my great aunt, she's in her 70s, late 70s now. That shocks her, like, to know tomorrow. And I understand, like, that's a thing you just did. It didn't matter, and especially if you're French, it's very touchy in
Yeah.
people's bubbles. But this one little kid is just like, "Eh, no, not today." Like,
Not today, Manny. You're not
yeah,
doing that.
unless he comes to you and asks for the hug, because that does happen occasionally. He's very like, no, don't touch me. I'm good. I'll come back later if I want a hug."
Yeah.
Like,
And I think that's important. It's important that we value that personal space. And I think we're in a really interesting time too, right? When we look at the news and we look at all the things that are kind of in our face a lot of the time, and we look at and particularly how women are treated in this space and how young boys are treated in this space, to be able to give them the ability to say that doesn't work for me and I don't like that, and giving them the space. And I think it's equally as important for us as adults to set those boundaries as well.
yeah,
We had people in our lives who really helped raise us, and as we got older, the relationship almost got weirder, and those hugs were not welcome anymore, and so it became an act of avoidance more than anything. And so like we look at this time of year and it is a very joyful time, but for people who don't want physical touch, or people who don't are not neurotypical, let's say. I mean, we have a lot of children and a lot of adults who are being diagnosed with ADHD, with autism. I've got a girlfriend who was diagnosed with autism very recently as an adult. And it explains so much about why they are how they are or what they want. But at the end of the day, it's a problem you need to explain yourself. If I don't want to be touched, if I don't want to sit at that table, if I don't want to do these things, I don't have to. But that being said, there is a responsibility to behave in such a way that you are being compassionate as you are creating the boundary, because conflict starts when you choose to use a tone of voice or words that don't align with the circumstance or the
And body
situation.
language.
Well, this is it. I mean, 56% of how we talk is our body language, and 37% is our tone of voice. And
Mhm.
so if you're simply just setting a boundary and there's no conflict to be had, and you're like, "Ugh, no, I don't want to hug you. No,
Yeah,
actually,
you're already on the
you've
defensive.
thrown a grenade. You've
Yeah.
thrown a grenade. And so there's a responsibility for us as parents and aunts and uncles and whatever to teach our children how to tactfully reject the things that don't suit us in a
Mhm.
way that doesn't make someone else feel like a complete asshole, right? Empathy isn't just I'm going to be with you when you're having a moment. Empathy is putting myself in somebody else's shoes when I'm creating a boundary
Mhm.
and creating an expectation for you to lean in on, right? You get what you serve. It's a boomerang, right? And so, people are like, well, I just had a boundary. And it's like, actually, you did, but you were a
You
complete
also
dick
started a
about how
war.
you said it. And
Yeah.
so what are you expecting to get out of that? And so I think there's two parts for us to play in this. There's the one where we're setting the boundary and we're saying, no, I can't. And in some cases, I will explain to people, I don't do that, or this isn't for me, or I have too much going on. And that's okay. It's okay for me to have too much going on. I've been spending a lot of time focusing on my career and on Unbreakable in the past couple of months, and to the detriment of my social life. And that's okay. That's a decision, right? But I don't owe everybody an explanation for why I'm doing that. And so, it's interesting. So my coach has decided that she's no longer going to be coaching athletes, which is totally fine. She's going in a different direction, doing mindset. That's what fuels her soul. She is phenomenal at that as a practice. And so I'm super supportive. But the thing is, I've been with her for 5 years. And so now I'm looking for a new coach, and I sent out a couple of emails while I was away in Europe to try and stimulate something before the holidays. Totally didn't work, which is fine. But what was really interesting was when I did get a note back from somebody who I reached out to, who I really am actually keen to work with. There was like this really long explanation as to why there was a delay in response. Well, it wasn't really long, but it was like an explanation. There was no like salutation or greeting. And it was just like, I've got all these things going on. I'm really busy. I'm backlogged. I've got all these things. And I'll get back to you when I can. And it's like, you don't owe me an explanation. You're a professional. Just tell me you received my email and carry on with your day. Right? Like we're so conditioned to try and give somebody an explanation for everything. And it's just like, yeah, I don't owe you an explanation for why I don't want to sit at the table, why I don't want to sit and have conversations, you know what I mean? Like,
No, that's a decision
I'm
that
just
you
going
could
to do what I want.
that's actually something that I've been, like, trying to drill into Brittany, and, I mean, just because she's a psychologist does not mean that what she teaches other people, she uses herself, and almost everything that she does, she feels like she needs to give an explanation. I'm like, "You don't even owe me an
Hmm.
explanation. You can just say, 'Hey, you don't wanna do this,' or 'This is what you wanna do,' instead of" and not that I don't want her to talk or, tell me a story, but I'm like, "You don't need to explain. Like, you don't wanna do it? That's fine. That's cool. We'll do something else. We'll do something you wanna do or that we line together." Or you say no to a friend that you don't wanna go hang out with or drive on shitty roads. It is the winter season right now. Uh,
Yeah.
and again, she's like, "Well,
Yeah.
I need to explain to them." I'm like, "No, you don't. Like, they can look outside and see that it's
They don't.
really crappy weather or and you don't feel comfortable. That's it. Like, just end it there in a nice way, obviously, like you said, how you come off is huge."
Yep. That matters. It matters. It matters. And you know what? One thing you can pass along to her, my therapist tells me all the time, your gifts are not for you.
Yeah.
She tells me that all the time. Your gifts are not for you. You are allowed to be human, despite the fact that you do this and provide this for other people. And it's, I mean, I'm in the business world 100% of the time, doing some really hard stuff a lot of the time, having a lot of difficult conversations, and it becomes exhausting.
Mhm.
and it becomes mentally challenging. And so to manage everything that we manage for other people in that psychological safety in that space, to then not be exhausted mentally and be able to apply our own practices to ourselves, it can be hard.
Yeah, that part's really hard.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. So you can
Psychologists are
pass that
huge.
along to her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, she does listen to the podcast. Occasionally, I'm in here working, and I hear my voice, and I'm like, "A minute."
Brittany, Brittany, your gifts are not for you. They're for everybody else. And it's a problem you think you need to explain yourself. I'm talking directly to you right now, sister.
There we go.
With love, of course.
She she had one on earlier, and, it was where I was explaining that I have to put the books in a different order, and she comes into the office, she looks at the bookshelf, and she's like, "You did change the books." I'm like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Yeah, I just heard it on the podcast." I'm like, well, took you this long to notice, so it's probably not that big of a deal then."
It's hilarious.
Uh,
That's hilarious. So tell me any other tips, any other things and rough patches that we should advise for our listeners. I mean, we're talking about boundaries, not overextending ourselves. We've talked about, being able to kind of push untrustworthy or unwanted touch away. I think the other thing is sleep. We
yes.
look at, I don't know about you, but neurologically, when I'm under rested, I'm a nightmare to be around
Oh,
because
same.
everything is a catastrophe.
I'm
And I have to
dysregulated
sit
beyond
and
belief.
like it's just when I'm under but that's it. That's it. And so I sat and I wrote some goals for myself for the remainder of the year. And I've already picked my word. My word of the year has been selected. And when I look at what my goals are, one of the goals that I had was prioritizing sleep quite a bit more. I think I did okay this year, but I want to do better because, I'm going to be in an off season for the next, 12 to 24 months, depending on, where this new coach and I want to go and what that looks like. And I think that the year is about to pick up. Coming in January, I start doing a lot more international travel again, and there's a possibility for much, much more, but we'll talk about that when we're ready to talk about that. We're going to be publishing the book in the next couple of weeks here, and we're going to be possibly doing a bit of a book tour. And then there's just the regular day-to-day life, lifting and work. And so when I think about how I want to have a really fulfilling 2026, I need to set the foundation for that. And I think that really good sleep hygiene and really good sleep practices are
There's
critical for that.
so
And the
much
other thing is just moving your
science
body. I
behind
think
that.
it is.
Like, that's
Absolutely.
where your day
Absolutely.
starts.
Well, and I think moving your body.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. And getting up and moving your body. And, I do 20 minutes of cardio every single day. I love it. It gives me the opportunity to catch up with people on the other side of the world. I can do emails. I can do whatever. Sometimes I go for 30, 35 if I have time. But it's just like over the
Okay, cycle.
holidays, get your sleep and move your body. Oh, I know. I know. But I feel great. I feel great. Every single day starts with a bang, right? And it's not just the copious amounts of caffeine that I really enjoy. It's
This
getting up
yeah,
and
move.
doing something for myself,
Yeah.
right? So those are my additional tips is, focus on you and make sure that you maintain some level of priority as self-care. And self-care, I'm going to be really honest with you. Some people would say that self-care is sitting on the couch and eating a bunch of cheese and chocolate and watching TV, and I'm going to disagree with that. I don't think
It's
it is. I
whatever
think
makes
that
you
is
feel good.
Yeah, I just don't think that that's a great thing for you to feel good. Like, I think you're going to feel really bad about yourself if you just pack yourself full of fat with your feet up on your coffee table watching, reruns of Jenny Jones on
Mhm.
YouTube. And I just think that there's resting and reading and doing something that's going to really make you feel better. Eat carrots if you want to sit and watch TV, you
Yeah.
know?
Actually, one of my self-care things is honestly putting my headphones in and going for a walk or sit by the river for 5 minutes and rejuvenates me for the next, week at least. It's not always sitting on the couch. There's times that I'm not gonna lie, yeah, I'd like to sit and play a video game for an hour, and then I'm good to go. It depends on the day.
I veg
Yeah.
nightly. I veg nightly. I veg
Mm,
nightly. When I'm done everything, I've got 8 to 10,000 steps. I've achieved all of my things. I've done the stuff. My calendar is clean. My inbox is managed. When I know that I've done the things that I set out to do that day, then I'm going to sit on the couch like a little bump on a log, and I'm just going to chill and eat the
And you
rest of
watch
my food.
Family Feud.
Like,
Is it Family Feud that you watch?
absolutely. Only
Yeah.
before bed,
Yeah.
though. Yeah, Family Feud before bed. Cleans the palate of my brain. It allows me to not have weird dreams about all the yeah. All right, let's wind this down. Top
Right.
tips. Top tips. Let's round them up.
I guess I started with kind of reframing your mindset. Um, we will probably
Frame your
talk
mindset.
more about that in the coming weeks with, the our post and stuff like that, just because I feel like that's a pretty big one. Um, Setting boundaries, big major one, and how to set those boundaries in a way that you're not going to start a war.
Mm,
Uh, what's the other one? Oh, self care, sleep hygiene. Also those. I think that was it. Yeah.
I think that was it. Setting
Mm.
boundaries. Yeah.
You
I think
wanna
it's those are the
answer
things
a
that really
quick
matter, and,
question or
articulating your yeah. Let's give me a question.
cool.
Give me a question. What do we got?
Let's see. Okay, talking about setting boundaries, we'll make this one the short question because there is a longer one that I think will take a little bit of time to talk about. What do I say when someone pushes that topic, in quotations, obviously a topic that they don't want to talk about, So how would you approach, say, someone in your family, friends? I have many topics that I don't like touching
Mm,
that, when it came to, like, Christmas time, everyone loved to bring it up. I have a ex that I do not like talking about, but I love my friend group. She always gets brought up. So that's a topic that I don't like touching anymore. Like, it's done, it's in my past. Okay, maybe it's not done. She's still out trying to destroy my life, but she can do what she wants. How would you approach not starting a fight or making someone feel kind of shitty about even bringing it up? I personally
great
have
question.
gotten up and said, "Hey, you know what? I am kind of tired about talking about this person or this topic. I'm going to go sit over here.
Hmm.
If you want to continue it, please don't involve me." And majority of the time, people will respect that. So that's my tip is just stand firm with it in a nice way. Uh, don't tell them to, STFU. Just say, "Hey, I'm not comfortable talking about this anymore. If you want to continue to talk about it, please do it where I'm not around." Easy peasy.
Yeah. I'm very much of the same mind. This is where you stand up for yourself. This is your backbone, and this is your boundary.
Mhm.
And I can recall a time where my dad actually was doing this. We were on a family vacation and we were with my in-laws. It was a 1-year anniversary for us, and then it was a 10-year anniversary for my parents and a 25 or no, it's like 35 or 45 years for my in-laws. And my dad used to love to bring up the stupid shit that I did when I was 16. And it would be like, and I was really like out there where I was like doing stuff, and sometimes he would need to like throw the life preserver out or come and rescue me from wherever.
Yeah, sounds
And they were really like, they were not great stories. They're kind of embarrassing because you're on the come up in your life and your prefrontal cortex isn't, you know, fully formed, so you don't make good decisions. And so I'm in front of all these people and he starts bringing these stories out, and I just looked at him and I was like, we are not going to have this conversation right now. I am not interested in this dialogue. This is
mhm.
not productive. And I got up and I left the table. Like, I showed my disdain. That was probably one of the only times that my dad and I ever had conflict with me as an adult. as a child and a youth, of course, we had what we had as growing up. But in this space, I was just like, I was completely intolerant of it. And my body language said everything I needed to say. And don't get me wrong, my father and I were very, very close. And that was the first time that I'd ever really had to set a boundary in terms of what he was saying or doing. Like until that point, I'd kind of tolerated it when he would do that. And then, what I find is very few and far between do people ever make me the butt of their joke. But when they do, it's as if they think that I'm undereducated or I'm stupid. And in a lot of instances, I simply do not respond or I don't engage with it because it's like, it's so petty that it's not worth my time. Like it's small talk. And what it is a reflection of other people and not a reflection of me.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I know what I bring to the table. I'm not afraid to eat alone. Right. And so that makes me like, but that also pushes me into one of my trigger spaces, which is I'll get them before they get me. And I'm diabolical when I get to that space because what I will do is I will do anything it takes to take the pain and pressure off of me and put it back onto that person. And I know the level of intelligence that I bring, but I also know that, like I said, I am a very dark person when I get to that space. And so for me, it's about stopping it before I get to the space where I feel like I get defensive. And that is an emotional regulation thing for me, right? And there's this theory that I was given when I was about 15 years old, and I've got a model that I've actually built off of this. And so it's one of those things that I do in workshops when I'm with people. It's the three voices within.
Mm.
And before I get into the three voices within, well, I always identify which voice I need to speak with, whether it's the or the wise woman. And I always want to communicate with the wise woman as much as possible because the wise woman, she is emotionally regulated. She understands how to manage everything. And that's where all of my years of training and practice have come from. So the tactic, the first thing you do is you say, I don't want to talk about that. It's unproductive. It doesn't make me feel good. Whatever it is that you say, that's your boundary. But you don't have to be you don't have to be hostile about it. You could get triggered really fast. I get triggered really fast and I can feel, and I have to really control my tone of voice and I really have to control my facial expressions because when
Yeah,
I
same.
lose that emotional regulation, I don't need to say anything. You feel the energy in me harden. Right?
Mhm.
Because I go into I'm going to get them before they get me. It's a very natural reaction. And they know that about myself. And so you just say to them, I don't want to talk about that. That's not productive for me at this point, and it doesn't bring me joy. This is the holidays. I would rather talk about things that are more productive. A great example of that is going to be political situations and circumstances, particularly
Yes.
south of the border and through the provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan right now, and even British Columbia when we start to look
Mhm.
at some of the cross-provincial politics that are happening even just today as we're recording. And so now if somebody persists, what you do is you say, if you put this in the frame of how you tell somebody, I don't want to talk about that right now. And generally people will be like, "Oh, okay," because you're being very concise, you're being very, this is it.
But
If they
you
pers-
persistent.
if they persist and they say, "Yeah, but just you say in the same tone of voice, I said, I don't want to talk about that right now."
Mhm.
Generally, generally, putting it like that in those exact words, I don't want to talk about that right now. I said, I don't want to talk about that right now. Generally, by the second time that you say it, people will cease and desist. They will not continue walking down that path. If you
Usually.
get to the third time, you get a little bit firmer in your tone of voice and your body language. So this is where we start to use our insights to our own advantage, where you put your hands up in front of you for the listeners who are listening and not watching. You put them up in front of you as if you're saying stop. And you push them out and you say, I said, I don't want to talk about that right now. Thank you. Thank you is a period.
Yeah.
You will then turn and walk away from that person. They
Mhm.
will not approach that. They will not approach the subject again. Those are tried and true tactics. I have used that tactic since I was 15 years old, and it works every single time. I have
Mhm.
only ever had to get to the third iteration twice in my entire life. I've stopped everything at the second time.
I can't say I got to stop it all the second time, but
Yeah.
Uh,
But it's the exact language though. It's the language and it's the body language, and it is really just creating like, I said, I do not want to talk about that right now. Thank you.
Body language
You.
really is key, and
Lights out.
yeah, as soon as you start using that, I mean, I know when people do it to me, not saying that they tell me to stop all the time, but body language in general,
Hmm.
it's just it registers so much quicker because some people don't register how people are talking or the tone of voice or even the facial expressions. I mean, resting face is a thing, and when
Hmm.
it actually comes to the big face, most people don't take it seriously. But you start using your body language and they're like, "Oh, okay." 'Cause I personally have a resting face, and I have sometimes a sarcastic tone. I say sometimes with a smile because I think 99% of the time I have a sarcastic tone. I'm harder, I think, to take serious. But when the tone changes and the body language comes out,
Yes.
people just stop doing what they're doing and they listen so intently. So, me knowing that, if I have to set a boundary or I have to tell someone that I don't wanna talk about that, as soon as I shift those, the whole room will go silent.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's important for us to lean in on those things and not be afraid. I mean, walk toward the roar in this case. I wouldn't say run toward
mhm,
the roar because that's where you're using a tone that's not as appropriate. You're really you're starting to speak with the, and the is the one who's protected you and you gotten you to that point. But this is I think where a lot of family feuds start is it happens when somebody says something, they trigger somebody, and that person just has no emotional regulation when it comes to it. And when I meet people who are like that, I can oftentimes tell you where the fracture in their resilience came from, at which age, based off of
mhm,
how they respond to me. And, I'll meet 35 or 40-year-old people who are behaving like 18 or 20-year-olds. And I can tell that something has deconditioned them from continuing to increase their resilience, whether that is opportunity, whether that is they've never really had a great foundation, they don't have professional development in their life, and so those are the things that I think about when I'm connecting with people. And so then I have to meet them at their level in terms of where their resiliency level is to be able to help them step change and come up to where they need to be, right? And that's the other thing is that when you start to blend back into families or friendsmas or whatever that is, the assumption is that we're all the same because we're part of the same family. But that's absolutely not true.
no,
It's
everyone
not.
is
I
different.
think we come from different origins, but based off of what we've experienced, I have siblings who have PTSD from being in the military. I I can't understand their responses to things because I've never seen combat, right? But then again, my family maybe doesn't take into consideration the things that I've done and the places I've been and the things that I've had to meet in my career, right?
Mhm,
I've gone from, being a regional to being a global and an international, and I've done, a bunch of speaking campaigns and all these things this year. Those are really, really different circles to be traveling in outside of being some poor little kid from the Yukon.
yeah,
Right? And
exactly.
so it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm not necessarily bringing all of that academic bullshit and making people feel some kind of way because I'm working with people in an industry they don't understand. Right? And so I think we all bring something unique to the table, but it's a matter of us just making sure that we're leveraging the relationships, we're meeting people where they are, we're setting appropriate boundaries, we're taking care of our sleep, we're moving our bodies a little bit every day. Like if you're going to take time off, get out for a walk. Like you said, that's such a peaceful thing. Rest and recovery is super important. And this time of year is the perfect time to just hibernate a little bit and fill your cup and find ways to come into January guns a blazing and ready to make 2026 yours.
Mhm,
Ah, amazing. Amazing.
very.
All right. Well, let's call it a day. Yeah, this is fantastic. So, listeners, viewers, we want your questions. We want you to want to come onto the podcast. We know that it is a very vulnerable thing to do. So, if you do want to come onto the podcast, reach out to Josie and on the Unbreakable Facebook page or on the Instagram, TikTok, whatever medium tickles your pickle. and we'll have you on. We can do a pre-meeting and make you feel a little bit more comfortable. But otherwise, keep your questions coming through the NGL. We want to hear them. We're going to start doing quite a bit more in terms of answering questions and doing banter as we get into the holidays and into the new year. So remember, protect your peace, chase your dreams, and stay unbreakable.